Why should you follow up properly after a training course? Well, I've got some bad news for you, and maybe as a CEO of a training company, I'm not the right person to be saying this, but training doesn't work. It's been known for a long time. There is a caveat to that, though. Training doesn't work if you don't take the steps to follow up. If you just leave your employees when they get back from a training course to go and get back to their jobs, they will forget 77% of what they've learned within 6 days. And if you've paid a lot of money for a training program and you're only getting 23% of the value, that's pretty poor ROI. So what we need to do is to make sure that you are fully equipped to follow up with people effectively afterwards. We're going to focus today, this session, on coaching, on how you can coach people after a training course. And if you've got people coming on a training course, you will know that before that course, you get a document from me explaining what people are going to cover and some ideas about how you can engage them in conversation before they go. Then they do the training course and they come away with action plans and course materials and so on. And then afterwards, you get another document from me with what I call grow questions. And they are grow questions to help you to engage with your employee afterwards. And if you know what grow is, that probably makes sense. And if you're not, you're probably scratching your head and thinking, grow? What's that all about? Well, that's why you're watching this video. I have a couple, not too many, of slides to share with you. So I'm going to pop those up now, and we're going to explore what grow is, what coaching is, and how you can then effectively coach your employees with the resources that we give you. So coaching is about many things, but one of the things which makes coaching particularly effective is training reinforcement. It's about making sure you get proper ROI at the end of the training course that you send your employees on. It's about getting maximum ROI from that training. When an employee comes on a training course with Novanta or Knowledge Bites, they get a number of things. I mentioned them just now. They get full training materials. Now, the training courses that people do with us, mostly those training courses are workshop-based, and I try not to give people too many materials during the course. What I prefer is for people to really focus on interacting with each other, on getting takeaways, on putting action plans into practice and so on. But after the course, within a day or two, they'll get full training materials with more information and proper bullet points and content on everything they've covered during the training program. So they've got that to refer to. So even if they're beginning to forget things and you ask them a question, they say, I can't remember, you can point them back to those training materials where they will find all the answers. The next thing they get is the knowledge which they've learned. They've been on a day, 2 days, perhaps more sometimes, of training. And during that period, they've picked up loads of knowledge, partly from the trainers, partly from their colleagues, partly just from thinking things through and coming up with kind of logical conclusions about what they do. That knowledge will stay in their head for a bit, and it's your job to cement it in there properly. They will also have, hopefully, a personal action plan from the course. Everyone is given an action plan document and encouraged and reminded a couple of times to fill it in. Those are actions which they have decided during the course it would be valuable for them to take. As they've reviewed the material, at the end, we've talked about the actions, we've shared some points, and hopefully then they've got those documented so that a couple of weeks later, when those actions are beginning to disappear, they can refer back to that and see what things they were going to commit to and make sure they properly do. So again, more materials which you can be helping them with. And that then leads us on to this coaching approach. And that's what I need from you, not from them. It's you who coaches them to reinforce that learning. And if you've not come across coaching before, we need to think about what coaching is. It's not this. It's not standing there with your mortarboard on, teacher like, and saying, do this, do this, do this. It's about asking the questions to get them to understand what they can do based on what they've learned on the course and other resources to achieve their goals, solve their problems, and so on, all those behavior changes you're looking for from them after the course. So I'm going to turn the slides off for a second, and I'm going to tell you a story about where coaching came from. So if you've not come across coaching properly before, coaching was developed by a man called Sir John Whitmore many decades ago. And I'm not a big fan of teaching people to coach. I prefer to tell the story of where coaching came from. And then it becomes quite clear what coaching is and what approach is needed from you to engage people properly in their learning. So John Whitmore, he was a businessman. He had another interest, another love in life, which was tennis. And he decided a long time ago that the way you learnt tennis at the time was not very effective. He thought it didn't really make much sense. The learner had to do too much work. So he developed this new technique of getting people to improve their tennis, and he called it coaching. He had one requirement, which was that if you wanted to improve your game with John Whitmore, he wouldn't take beginners. You had to already know a bit about what tennis was. And then he had this approach. Now, what I'd like to do is to compare his approach with how it used to be. And I warn you now, tennis is not my strong point. I do have a prop. I decided an actual tennis racket in my study here would probably make too much mess. So I've got a banjo instead. And for today, the banjo is the tennis racket. What can I tell you? If you went to learn tennis before John Whitmore, you would get some sort of expert, some sort of very good tennis player, perhaps who'd have many years of experience, who would tell you how he or she played tennis and then expect you to do all the work. Now, if it was me, apart from my lack of tennis skills, there would be other things that would make that challenging from me to perhaps you, depending on who you are. Let's just get a couple of physical points out about me. I am left-handed. I'm not quite sure which way around this looks in the video, but I'm holding the racket, the banjo, with my left hand. I'm left-handed, so I hold the racket in my left hand. I'm 6'2", so I'm guessing statistically I'm taller than some of you, so we're going to have a different angle over the net when we hit the ball. I'm 48. And I know you'll say, no, Neil, you don't look 48. But there will be some of you who are probably younger than me, who are probably fitter than me, and will play tennis in a different way as a result of that. So what happens? You come to learn from me. I teach you how I play tennis, and then you have to do all the work. You watch me hold it with my left hand. You have to hold it with your right hand. You watch me taking this sort of angle over the net. You have to go and take a different sort of an angle over the net based on your height, your fitness, and all those sorts of things. Wasn't really very effective. So John Whitmore decided that there was a better way to do it. He called it coaching. And it worked something like this. You come to me, say I'm John Whitmore now, and you know the basics of tennis. I'm not teaching you the basics. And you come to me and I say, who will we call you? Let's call you Sarah. I say, okay, Sarah, hit the ball for me. And you've paid good money to come and be coached in tennis, so you probably start scratching your head and thinking, well, how do you want me to hit the ball? You're the expert. Just hit the ball. So you take your ball, you throw it up, you hit it, and then you watch where it goes. And I might say, okay, so how happy are you with where that ball went? And you might look and you might say, well, I'm happy with the way it went over the net. Probably could have landed closer to the net and maybe closer to the tram lines on the edge. But I'm happy-ish. Okay, so you've just described then, Sarah, where you would like that ball to land. So have another go. And you probably again ask me, but how should I do it differently, Neil? Or John, I've forgotten my name already. How should I do it differently? I said, well, let's just try something different. You do it again. I then ask you again, how happy are you with it? And then you make a comparison. We put that down. You make a comparison between what you did first time and what you did second time. You begin to work out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And what you've probably noticed is, as a tennis coach, I've not told you anything. I've not passed any of my biases on. I've not taken control and told you how to do something. I've helped you to set your goal, to understand where you currently are, and then to put together your own plan about how you're going to improve it for you. Let's fast forward a couple of years. This became very popular, and he then decided to go and apply the same principles to his second love in life, and his second love in life was skiing. He went to France, he set up a ski school, an English ski school, to teach English people to ski better. Again, the same rules. He wouldn't take beginners. You had to already know how to ski, and I won't go through the whole thing again, but he got people to feel how they felt on their skis, how happy they were with their cornering, and so on. He did this again. It became very popular, and after a couple of years he hit a problem that he was having more inquiries from people learning to ski and play tennis and so on than he had coaches to deal with. What were his options? Well, I often ask that when I have a live group on this and people say, oh, he could have hired more coaches. He could have done, but it would have taken a while. People say, well, he could have got some of his students to do coaching. Could have done, but he didn't. Some people say he could have written a book. He did. And there's a great book. It's called Coaching for Performance by John Whitmore. I highly recommend this as your reference for coaching in the future. But what he actually did for his tennis students, coachees, was the summer months. He had some very bored ski coaches. He brought them back to the UK. He said, I would like you to coach the tennis players. One rule, don't touch the racket, because he knew that if these people found out that their coaches couldn't actually play tennis, it would damage their credibility. But he did this in quite a measured way. And over that summer, he measured people's improvement, people's motivation, people's experience being coached. And what he found at the end of that period was that the people who have been coached in tennis by a ski coach had greater improvement, greater motivation, greater overall experience than those who had been coached by a tennis coach. Now, why would that be? Well, I'm going to say it's because even if you're following the rules of coaching, and he was saying, don't teach them, ask them questions, get them to self-analyze, it's still a temptation to build those lessons into your questions. Sarah, how would it be if you threw the ball higher, pulled your arm back further, and hit it harder on this sort of angle? Yes, technically it's a coaching question, but really, you know what I'm saying. I'm saying, throw the ball higher, hit it harder, and so on. The ski coaches couldn't do any of that. They could only do pure coaching. Now, I first came across coaching as a discipline on a 5-day training course back in 2007. And let me just say now, it doesn't take 5 days to learn to coach it. It takes maybe a day or two. What takes a long time is the self-control to stop you giving people the answers. And it was taught by a lady called Peg Wallace, who'd flown over from the US to teach us this course. And we're at the morning break on day one. And I went up to Peg and I said, so Peg, what do you do when you're not teaching people to coach? And she gave, as you might expect, a slightly odd look. And she said, well, I coach people. I said, yeah, but what do you coach people in? Is it sales? Is it project management? Is it leadership? And she said, well, anything. I said, I don't get it, Peg. And she then gave me an illustration. And bear in mind, it's 2007. This is before we had Zoom calls and things like that. She said, well, let's imagine I live in New York and I've got a client, Adam, who lives in San Francisco. And he will phone me up for our bi-weekly coaching conversation. And I'll say to him, good morning, Adam. What can I coach you in today? And Adam might say, presentation skills. So I stopped her and I said, oh, okay, I get it, Peg. So Adam sends you a video of him. She said, no, I never see him give a presentation. I said, okay, so how does that work then? She said, well, it might work a little bit like this. You see, Adam has probably had an opportunity to go and give a presentation somewhere. And I will then also work through with him to kind of set his goals and establish where he wants to be with his presentation skills. This is how to coach. So this conversation with Adam might start off with, Adam, who do you aspire to be like as a presenter? Who do you think gives a really good presentation? And Adam might say, and I'll just share one of my personal favorites here, Barack Obama. By the way, there's a great video on YouTube if you're interested in presentations, the speech that made Obama president. Very, very good presentation. Barack Obama. And then Peg might say to Adam, so what is it about Barack Obama that you really like? And Adam might say, well, I love the way that he seems to have the audience in the palm of his hands. I love the way he uses gestures, body language, and eye contact. He seems to do it all without slides as well. It's just a clear, personal, heartfelt message that he gives to people. He engages his whole body, his intellect, his mind in giving these presentations. He's got an engaging voice. Barack Obama gives a good presentation. So Peg might then follow up and say, okay, Adam, so what's your reality? What are your presentations like? And Adam might say, well, I gave one at work last week, and to be honest, it didn't go very well. I had half an hour and I had 90 slides for this presentation, which I know was probably a little bit too much. And I've got a bit of a problem. My voice is a little bit monotonous. I don't really have a very engaging voice. And I have no idea what to do with my hands when I'm giving a presentation. So I leave them stuck firmly in my pockets. And I'm giving this presentation, and I could see people drifting off. Some people were on their phones, a couple of people chatting. Some people left the room to go and get their biscuits for the break early. One or two people fell asleep at the back. It was a terrible presentation. Okay, Adam, says Peg. So what are your options to increase your performance from your current reality up to your goal? How can you move yourself just a little bit closer to Mr. Obama? And Adam might say, well, I mean, the first thing, half an hour presentation, cut it down, 90 slides, cut it down to 30. That would be the first thing. I think 1 slide per minute is a bit more reasonable for a presentation. I need to get my hands out my pockets and know that that stifles me. So I'm going to get my hands out my pockets on the presentation. I've also got this problem in my monotonous voice. I'm not going to do anything about that right now. I think that's too much, but maybe I'll work on that in the future. Those are my options that I've got. Okay. So if those are your options, what will you do? When can you put these things into practice? Which options are the best ones? Okay, well, I think my number one is to cut those slides down. And then if I can, I'm going to see if I can get my hands out of my pockets. In fact, maybe I'll just get one hand out. That will probably make me more comfortable. And as I said, that tone of voice thing, I'm going to leave that for the future. I've got a presentation next week. I'm going to go and give it a try. And that's it, the end of the coaching conversation. Adam goes off to his presentation. A couple of weeks later, he'll come back to Peg again. They will review where he got to and so on. I'm not going to go through it all again, but this can then become an iterative process where you help people to build on what they've learned, or in Adam's case, what he's seen from looking at Barack Obama. Think about what people's individual skill sets are, get them to find what's going to work for them rather than just doing what you say they should do, and build up their own plan. That is coaching. And that's when you get things really working and you get your ROI on your training program. And you've probably gathered, and I've mentioned it a couple of times already, that coaching is all about the questions. You need to ask questions to people rather than tell people what to do. So I've got a couple of slides now, give you a small selection of questions that you could ask during a Grow coaching conversation. I have many more. So if you want some more, you use it, fill in a form on the webpage, send me an email, wherever you want to get them from. Get in touch with me somehow, find me on LinkedIn, something like that, and I will get my full Grow coaching bank of questions over to you. Here's a little selection for us to talk through now, though. So somebody's just done a training course, they've come back into the office, you're sitting down with them and you're talking about, well, let's say sales or sales leadership. Your question to that person, where do you want to be with this? Well, I would love to have a sales team, sales leadership will go with, I would love to have a sales team where everyone is super motivated, everyone is overachieving on their targets, and so on and so on. You know, all those great things you want them to be saying about their sales team. You could ask things like, when this problem is solved or this opportunity is achieved, what will that mean for you? You can ask them to rate their own skill level as a sales leader or whatever other topic they've learned on their training course. How skilled do you want to be in this? How skilled do you need to be in this? You can get them to think about any barriers there might be between them achieving success. And you can make sure they know how they're going to realize when they have achieved the success they are looking for. That's all about that future state. So you've just done a training course. What are you working on now? What do you want to achieve with it? Where are you going to be in the future? Having just done that training course, what's your current reality? What's happening at the moment? What's stopping you from solving this right now? If you didn't solve this, what would that mean to you? What's holding you back? What are you struggling with? This is where you uncover their challenges that they need to surmount in order to achieve that goal. Then it's down to what I see as the heart of the coaching conversation. Probably 60% of the conversation should be around their options. What did you learn on the training course which could help you? What other options do you have? If you could wave a magic wand, what would you do? If all the constraints were removed, what would you do then? Well, unfortunately, the constraints aren't removed, but shall we use that as a starting point and think about how we can operate within those constraints? What support might you need from me, from somebody else to achieve this? And as I said, this is the heart of the conversation, maybe 60% of the conversation. Plenty more questions you can ask here. And as I said, you can get my list. At the end, what will you do? Out of all those options, what is your first step going to be? What results do you expect to see, and in what time frame? What will you do if you don't see the results you expect? When are you going to begin working on this? This is about getting commitment to action and making a decision. And if you can work with your employees through this, you can turn their black and white world that they might have into something which is rich and colourful, where they can really see how what they've learned on the training course can be actioned in their jobs. So this isn't about attending a training course and stick people back in their job and just hope things change. This is about opening up the possibilities that all that new knowledge has brought them and helping them to embrace that and to get the maximum ROI from any training that they attend. Other steps that you can do. You can sit down with your employee before any training courses. Focus them on the key content that they would like to learn. Discuss what questions they'll ask during the course. Ask them how they'll implement their learning once the course is complete. And again, any training courses that they do with us, you will get a pre-course document helping you to see exactly what they're going to be covering and some suggested ideas about areas you could be discussing with them. Then they come on the training course, and after the training course, you coach them. Use your Grow coaching, as we've just talked through, on all the things they learned on the course. Another thing you can do is hold them to account on their action plans. As I said, everyone's been given one, they've been reminded several times. Hopefully everyone's done an action plan after the course. You need to look through it with them, see what actions they've got, and follow up with them in a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever it may be, to make sure that action's completed. And if it's not, make sure they're making progress towards it. And if they're not, what can you do? You can coach them towards it. And of course, it's not just about following up once. Follow up again regularly to make sure you achieve that true behavioral change, which is what you're looking for in your employees. Now, this is just a short video to help you do this. What you need to think about now is how you feel about following up post-course. Maybe it's something you've done before and you're really happy. Maybe it's the first time you've done it and you're not sure how to go and approach it. Doesn't matter how you feel about it, but once you understand, you can then do something about that. Go and get the support you need from your boss, from me, from Coaching for Performance, John Whitmore book, from the documents that you get sent after your employees attend a training course. I am here to support you in getting the performance you need out of your employees. And that's it. We're done. There you go. You now know what coaching is, had a couple of little examples of how coaching might work, and more importantly, you now know about these documents that you're going to get after somebody attends one of the courses with us that make sure that they are able to bring things to those calls with you, conversations with you, meetings with you, to maximize the ROI they get from the training. My name's Neil Shawnee. Do get in touch if there's anything I can help with. Bye-bye.